Hi everyone. Summer has well and truly turned into autumn now. It's actually mid-October, and it's a decision as to when we should now pick our grapes. I think we're about ready, to be honest, but it's only our second year, remember, and we're not expecting to get bumper volumes of grapes this year. It's really sort of years 3, possibly 4 onwards that we should get the volume that we should get from this vineyard. But anyway, year 2, we've got enough decent grapes to pick to at least make a few bottles of wine. So that's what we're going to do this year. The decision is, though, not just for this year, but also future years, is when the best time to pick our bunches of grapes is. Now, a lot of people say that it's really just the sugar level in the grapes that matters, and we can test that using a little refractometer, which I'll show you in a second. But it's not just sugar, it's also things like pH, the acidity in the grapes, also the look and the feel of the grapes as well, what they taste like, and things like that. So we'll go through all of that with the vines behind us here, and I'll show you as to the decision that I'm making as to exactly when I should be picking the grapes, which I think actually is round about now. Now, if you're lucky enough, the people that supply you the vines should give you some kind of indication when the best time of year, or a target date anyway, for when you should pick the grapes. Now in our case, we're growing the Bacchus variety on an SO4 rootstock in some fairly sort of light clay soils here. And I've been given a target date of round about the 13th of October. Well, it's actually the 15th of October now, but you can't go by an absolute day. It's never going to be that accurate. So you've really got to use the sort of things that we're going to go through now to tell you exactly when to pick. So let's get straight into that now. So the first thing we should look at is actually the condition of the grapes themselves and the vine as well. So that's what we're going to do on these here. So we've got some really nice grapes here. The stems are going a sort of woody brown. They're going quite brittle actually, some of them, as they turn to that sort of time of year where all the leaves start dropping and things like that. The grapes themselves are nice and sort of plump and juicy. The skin themselves are starting to get a little bit softer rather than that very sort of taut feel they had earlier on in the year. They've also started to take on this slightly mottled look to them as well, which is a sign that the grapes are mature and ready for picking. So the grapes look as if they're ready to pick. Okay, the next thing to look at is the inside of the grape itself. I've bitten this one in half already, and in this one we've got 2 little pips, and they're just starting to sort of go a little bit brown as well. And I've read online, and you can tell me whether this is right or wrong, because I honestly don't know. But the pips themselves should start to break apart a little bit easier now than they did earlier on in the year. So I'm just going to bite into this one. They do indeed actually fall to bits quite easily when you crunch into them. Beforehand they may have been a little bit more chewy, but these ones are quite crunchy in a funny sort of way, and they do fall to bits really easily in your teeth. So that's one little test that I've read is an indication as to when the grapes are ready to pick. Next thing we should do is actually taste them, see what they're like. Now, these are vine grapes, obviously. They're not table grapes. Table grapes tend to have a sugar content around about 15%. Wine grapes are much higher. White grapes, you're looking at about sort of 19 to 22, 23% sugar. Red grapes a little bit higher still, up to about 25, 26%. So we really should be tasting a lot of sugar in these grapes and taste the sweetness. So I'm just going to try this one. These are really sweet, so that's a good sign. Roughly speaking, half the sugar is turned into alcohol. So if you've got 20% sugar in your grapes, then that should sort of roughly translate to about 10, maybe 11% alcohol. But no, these are really nice. And actually, funny enough, you can taste what the wine is going to taste like. I know it sounds really stupid. I'm thinking, well, of course you can, because, the flavour really comes from the grapes. But you're tasting these and you think, actually, it really does taste like wine, which is encouraging, really. So anyway, that's good. Right, on to the next step. Right, the next thing we're going to do is actually test the sugar content inside our grapes. Rather than guessing it and just sort of gauging it by feel or taste, we're actually going to measure it. And what we're going to be using is one of these little refractometers. Now, I picked this one up off, I think it was Amazon or eBay, somewhere like that. They're not terribly expensive. They're mechanical devices, really. They don't have any electronics or anything like that inside, so it's rather nice to know that you're not going to run out of batteries at all. And the way they work is on the principle that sugar or sugary water has a lot higher density than just normal water, and so it refracts the light at a different rate, and a different rate of refraction bends the light in such a way that you can measure it when you look through the eyeglass here. So what I'm going to do is do something that I picked up from another vineyard, and that is to randomly, and the key is randomly, pick say half a dozen or so grapes and put them in a bag, squish them up, and then test the juice from those dozen grapes or so on the refractometer and see what reading we get. It's a very, very simple device to use, and I'll show you exactly what I'm doing. So essentially, you just want to not look at the bunch of grapes and just sort of pick, half a dozen or so from different bunches as well, and not just from this same vine. Go to a different vine, pick another one or two from that one, go on to the next one, pick another one or two from this one as well, and sort of go along just picking a few from a selection. Once you've got a few that you're happy with, then what you want to do is put them in a bag. Okay, once you've got them in a bag, you want to sort of squish them up, just pulp them up as best you can. Let all those juices sort of intermingle with each other like that. Probably best if you do quite a few. I'm just sort of doing it quickly just to sort of show you rather. You can, if you've got a lot of grapes, then do a few more just to get a bit more of a random mixed sample, as it were. But anyway, it doesn't take long just to squish the bag up to get some juice. And then once you've done that, in your little sort of refractometer kit, you've got a pipette, and you can just suck up some juice. Only needs a few drops, really. And then what you do on the little surface of the refractometer is to put a couple of drops on that blue pane there. So that's what I'm going to just do right now. Now, I'm actually quite happy with 19% because we've not actually had a brilliant summer this year. In September, for example, we had hardly any sunshine at all, just when we wanted the sun to really power that sugar into the grapes. We've had a little bit of sunshine this last week or so in October, but really that's been about it. So we've had a pretty poor summer for sunshine, and so getting up to 19–20% is going to be a struggle. But having said that, I think we're about right to at least pick them. And if we wait any longer, we do run the risk of things like mildew and other molds wrecking the grapes altogether. And so I'm just going to take the judgment call to pick them now. But anyway, the other test, which I did mention right at the beginning, is a pH test. And what you can do is get a little pH meter like this one. Again, I got this one off eBay or Amazon. I'll put the link in if I can find it in the description below. And this very simply is a dip meter, as it were. So you get your test sample of grape juice and dip it in there. Now, there's loads of sites on the internet that give you an ideal pH range of what your grape juice should be, depending on the variety that you're growing. Now, as I say, I'm growing a Bacchus variety. It's obviously a white wine grape, this one, and I'm looking at a pH of round about sort of 3.2, something like that. And so I'm going to pick some more grapes, go back to the house and actually test it inside. But I'm pretty sure from a sample that I did the other day, we are round about sort of 3.5, something like that, which is good enough for me, to be honest. So that's absolutely fine. So we've got the look of the grapes about right. The stems are looking good. The pips are good. They taste fantastic. The sugar content is right, and the pH is in the right ballpark as well. So I think we're ready to go. So I've got some friends coming this weekend. So guess what they're going to be doing for about an hour and a half this weekend. So over to them tomorrow. It's going to be really interesting to see how much wine we actually get. So we're just picking all the grapes now, and we'll see how many buckets and well, see how many kilos we've got really by the end of it. So I'm not expecting loads, but we'll just see how we get on. Okay, well, harvest is done. I've weighed it all in now, and we've got about 11 kilos of fruit, which is about 24 pounds or so in Imperial. Now, that's actually quite a small amount, really. We're hoping for obviously many times that in future years. So because it's quite a small sample, I'm not going to use a big press, which I'm in the middle of making here. This is going to be my, my big fruit press for future years. I'm actually going to be using a little, I suppose it's a little apple or fruit press or something. So it's going to be this one that I'm going to be using for such a small sample. So the fruit basically goes in the top there, and it gets pressed, running through the slats in the wood here, flowing out through the onto the tray and out into the nozzle into a bucket. So that's basically what we're going to do now. And I'm guessing from about 11 kilos of fruit, we'll probably expect to get about, I'm going to guess here, so it'll be interesting to see what we get, but I think we'll probably get about 7 litres of fruit, thereabouts. So it's actually ideal as a sort of test sample. Anyway, I'm going to get on with that and see how we get on. But that's actually going to be it for this video. I'm going to make future videos on how I go through making this test batch of wine, going through pressing of the grapes and putting it into fermentation vessels and going through that process and actually bottling it. In years to come, as I say, hopefully it's going to be a little bit more on a sort of semi-commercial basis, where we'll do it a little bit more professionally, maybe, perhaps. But we'll see how we get on for this year. But until the next video, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll catch you in the next one. But until then, bye for now.